So welcome everybody. This is being recorded, so if you don't have to go out, if you can be very quiet, that would be much appreciated. And if you have any mobile phones, if you could switch them to silent or airplane mode, that would also be great, so there's no beep beeping. At the end of the talk, there will be time for questions. So hang on to your questions, and we'll look forward to hearing all those. So we will be asking questions relating to love, relating to Tantra and the biology of human emotions. We'll be asking questions like, does the complex cocktail of chemistry in the brain get in the way of love and of fulfilling relationships? And are hormones the cause of heartbreak and painful emotions like rage and jealousy? Is it inevitable that attraction towards our beloved will decrease over time? And what is the importance of the orgasmic experience to our being's mind, body, and soul? So they're all big subjects, and I'm delighted that we're joined by Dr Liat Yakir, biologist, researcher, teacher, and author of the book A Brief History of Love, in which she explains the complex biology of human emotions in respect to our fundamental need for love. We also have Maria Porsfelt, practitioner of yoga since 2001 and teacher of Tantra for 15 years. She's led retreats, workshops, and women's groups on erotic fulfillment, beauty, and sensuality, all the while centering on our own true nature and the importance of discovery of the self. And Foca Yariv, who has been practicing yoga and tantra from an early age, teaching it for 15 years and guiding men on the spiritual path, supporting them in the practice of amorous, erotic continence and tantric lovemaking. So these are our speakers, so welcome to our speakers. I will start off with you, Liat, if I may. What I loved about your book was your dedication to explaining human emotions. For years, I've been asking the question, what are emotions for? Was that the reason, the motivation behind the book?
Yes, and mainly I wanted to explore love, to explain love to myself and to others. I think we are fully educated about the subject, and we go with a lot of myths about love. And even for me, my love life, I would call it non-successful, but maybe it's very teaching. It is part of my, spiritual path to learn about love, also from my own experience and also from my biology studies and scientific path. So I merged the both, and I told my story, and through this also explaining the biology of love, the way that I researched it and saw it, and I talk about a lot of research in the book. So my motivation is to help us understand more and be more conscious about our love life and make more fulfilling and long-term relationships, because this is the essence of our being. We need love. We need these hormones that are secreted when we are having a full attachment and fulfilling life with others. We are social creatures, and we need it. So I guess when you understand the mechanisms, it makes us more conscious and not be unconscious to the way the biology drives us.
So you're very much an educator. You want people to understand, so to prevent suffering?
Yes, exactly. Prevent suffering and heartbreaks and all the emotions that you talked before, resentment and anger and embarrassment and guilt that we sometimes feel in our love life and path. I'm divorced twice. I talk about love, but so I'm real evidence of non-monogamy or not full. Sexual monogamy, like I said, other creatures are also, most of species on Earth are non-monogamous. But when you understand it helped me understand what was driving my choices in life, why my marriages why the attraction was decreased, what happens after children. I'm really like the statistics. Like 3 years after the firstborn child, the problem starts, and every 5 years a marital crisis in the relationship, and we didn't discuss not love, sex, or any aspects. We just, do it automatically, without thinking, without understanding. And because my life is biology, I studied it, I have a PhD in genetics and a master's in hormonal research. So for me it was a way to combine biology and life, or thinking about life, and really understand more what it means.
So you were just, in a way, you were understanding your hormones,
Yeah.
and then understanding something that you were never taught in life.
Yes. You learn from life. But then when I extensively looked at research from animals to humans, and understanding the differences between the female brain and the male brain, you start to understand why things that happens to you happens to everybody. It's universal. The problems that I suffer from or I experience, everybody experiences. It starts with magic. It starts with the butterflies. It starts with a lot of dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, and then after a few years, maybe even less, something happens, and the euphoric state that you stayed in the beginning, you come out of it, and you see the flaws of the other, you see the flaws of yourself. It unmasks the flaws, and then it starts to feel uncomfortable. Sometimes couples fight more, grow apart. Sometimes everyone tries to find himself, some other things to do, and not to talk about what's happening to us. Things become more routine and certain and predictable, and sex is like a script. And then, if we understand biology, we understand that it is encrypted in our biology to feel less attraction to the same person, and then to be attracted to other person. So we can talk later about the cheating effect, the Coolidge effect, and why. And all of these experiences are universal. People all around the world have these experiences. So if it's universal, it's biological. It is written in our biology, wirings in our brains, circuits in our brains. But when we understand it, we know what to do. If we don't understand, if we were not aware of it, it manages our behavior without even that we know.
Foca, can I bring you in here? How did you get involved in...
My brother bought me Liat's book, it just came out in Israel, and I read it and I found it fascinating. I like all the topics because I've been dealing a lot with relationships and learning about especially polarity, the difference and the beauty of the game of polarity between men and women. And then there were some things that I read in the book. Liat in the end kind of speaks a lot about solutions, because if you read the book, it's a little bit depressive because it's all like, oh my God, it's doomed. There's nothing to do about it. And then in the end, it's very bright because they say, look, there's a lot of solutions. And she mentioned Tantra there as one of the solutions. So I just wrote her an email. I said, you speak about solution, and Tantra is an integral part of my life. Let's talk. And then I thought it would just be a 10-minute talk, and we stayed talking about an hour, particularly about some aspect that kind of was claimed as this is the biology. And one of the aspects that she mentioned in the book, Liat, is that biologically man is to ejaculate every 3 days, I think it mentioned, 3-4 days. And on the tantric path, you learn how to suspend it for many, many years. So I wanted as well to say, look, I completely agree that might be the biology, but Tantra has solutions that transcend biology if we learn the inner mechanism. And this is how basically this is how Liat is here because
Yeah, were you worried at this point? For his health.
she did ask me.
You need to see a doctor straight away.
No, I promise her I'm not.
I find it fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
What conclusions do you draw?
There is not enough research because for most of humanity, I think maybe not where Tantra was taught, but in Western world where science was taught mainly. So ejaculation and orgasms occurs both in men. So there was no research about orgasms and how the orgasms affects the prostate gland and all the reproductive system of male. So there is no isolation of variables. So ejaculation and orgasm are together. So that's why in the book also I said, or in lectures, 21 orgasm per month for men is very recommended.
And how many for women?
As much as possible. There is no research on women.
There's no research
There
on
is
women.
no research on women because also for us it's more complicated to study it because ovulation is not coupled with orgasm in women. Ovulation is a different story. But research on women in menopause found that women that are more sexually active before getting to menopause and perimenopause has much less symptoms, and also this period goes smoother than women that are not sexually active, because in orgasm we have so much activity in the brain, and a great activity, because this is the mission that we came to do, to pass our genes to the next generation. So we get a lot of good chemicals in this pharmacy in our head, in our body, that are secreted during orgasm. And not enough women get orgasm. So this is not.
We take care of it. No, not me personally. I mean, teaching other men. No, don't take it wrong. Not me personally. Teaching men how to offer as much pleasure to the woman in love. That's what I meant to say.
Maria, can I bring you in? On the subject of orgasms and women's cycles.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, I've also loved very much Liat's book. I only read it in English. Hebrew is not very compatible with me. I mean, obviously being a woman, it kind of makes sense, because one of the big revelations for me around hormones for sure was the understanding of my monthly cycle, because I think women are much more aware of how affected we actually are by our hormones, and how we can be 4 different women at least in the span of our monthly cycle, and how much of that is the difference in hormones, at least apparently, because again it depends on whether biology determines other things or whether other things determine biology, of course. But actually I was just thinking now when Liat said this about how making love and having a lot of orgasms would make your period smoother or somehow harmonize it. Because one of the things that we focus on in Tantra for women, we can say, or the more feminine part of the tantric practice, is around harmonizing the menstrual cycle and having a more harmonious experience of that, because many women have a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort and a lot of problems around their monthly cycle. And how we can actually look to harmonize that. And of course you can say hormones is a very big part of that. But still, what we're also looking at in lovemaking is how when you have an orgasm, it also means a modulation, energetically speaking, is what we'd also look at from a tantric perspective. Energetically moving some of these energies that otherwise will be too condensed, we can say, in particular levels of our being, and how that would be considered also to be responsible for whether or not then the cycle that follows will be harmonious. So this, we can say that, as I would more look at it, the reflection into our physical body of this reality that we can work with energetically in a tantric practice is very fascinating, and I had a lot of, we can say, revelations actually when I was reading Liat's book. Particularly, one thing actually, and maybe I'm jumping a little bit out of the women's only perspective now, But how you described it very beautifully, how two people who are virtually strangers, they meet and something there in their behaviors and their responses to each other hormonally make them suddenly very connected and very bonded and super important to each other. And then that lasts for some years, and suddenly they can end up like strangers again, like that never existed somehow. Sometimes even while still being in the relationship, but there is like a wall or a separation, and they don't seem to connect to each other. So we can somehow return to that state of being strangers if we don't know how to cultivate the behavior that made us be very close and very important to each other to begin with. And that's why I feel there is a very important revelation, especially in this book with regards to that, this idea that actually there are certain behaviors and certain mechanisms that lead us to not be strangers but to profoundly connect, and maybe to be more attentive to that so that we don't end up strangers again if we wish to have a long-lasting and fulfilling relationship.
Can you give an example of behaviors?
I think definitely I can also give you many examples of this because there is a lot about it in the book, but I mean, what we actually teach also, and that's probably also where it stood out to me so much, that in the tantric practice we look a lot at how to keep the flame alive in a relationship, how to still feel attracted and be in love after many years, after 2 or 3 years when hormones are not our friends like that anymore, or not helping at least, how we can still keep the, the flame alive. And there we consider that in the beginning, when we meet, we have a certain way of being with each other. So we have a certain way of interacting, a certain way of being together, which of course is, we can say, either kind of inspired by a certain hormone or a certain hormonal response, or maybe also is supporting a certain hormonal response, the way that we are, the attitudes that we have, the way that we are open towards each other. And looking at those behaviors and that inner attitude and that setup, we can say, we had in the beginning, and try to keep that alive and bring it back when it's not there anymore, will have an effect of bringing back that beginning, because actually the hormonal response starts to be like it was in the beginning. So that's where it becomes very interesting when that reflects into the biological level of response, that our attitudes also determine that in our behaviors.
Does that work for men?
Definitely. If after 3 years you stop giving so much flowers and you hear this wonderful talk and you remember, oh, in the beginning I gave her so many flowers. Let me be more attentive to being more romantic. Then you start to be more in love again. You feel more in love. You feel more manly as well, more supportive, more alive there. And we need to check hormonally how it works. But I believe you reawaken similar hormones in you because you reinstate the spark of the beginning.
Emotion is a change in our conscious states by the release of chemicals. There are 9 family of neurochemicals, some of hormones, some of neurotransmitters that are only inside our brain, and they affect our feelings and the conscious states that we are staying in, and also behavior. Emotion is energy in motion to activate a behavior. This is the purpose of emotion. This is the most ancient mechanism of thoughts and language. It came later. The language came later.
So there's an emotion, and then it's an impulsion, a compulsion to action.
Yeah. So emotion drives behavior, and behavior drives emotion, because the behavior drives the release of these hormones. And when we talk about love hormones, it's dopamine, the pleasure and motivation hormone. It's serotonin, which is the one that I think, this is the spiritual hormone for me. Serotonin is the happiness hormone. Happiness, dopamine, sometimes we confuse because also dopamine is in pleasure and happiness, and also serotonin. The difference is dopamine is to seek for something that you don't have. To have pleasure, to go to a restaurant, to eat something that you didn't eat, or you feel hungry. To do things or to want things that you don't have. And serotonin is to be grateful for what you have, to be in your center, to nature, sun, to be in nature, it rises serotonin. To have orgasm, it rises serotonin. To be with people, it rises the serotonin. Not to to be happy with what you have, not with what you don't have.
So it's uplifting.
It's uplifting, and oxytocin is the love hormone secreted when we laugh and when we hug and when we touch and when we kiss and when we talk to each other, share thoughts and feeling, and when we cry with each other, when we support each other. It creates our emotional bonds. Some of the autistic spectrum is caused by not enough oxytocin in the blood, so a problem with the secretion of oxytocin or the oxytocin receptors in the brain. And a hormonal mechanism works as long as much hormone that is secreted, the more receptors will be expressed. So if slowly I stop touching and laughing and dancing and singing, music also secretes serotonin and oxytocin and serotonin, the love hormone and the happiness hormone. So slowly we have also decreased receptors, and we can get used to not being touched, and we get used to not doing the behaviors. But again, behavior creates the hormones create behavior. We don't know what is the egg and the chicken here, but still it's a cycle that if these hormones, which creates for me, it's the connection between biology and spirituality, because the hormones change the conscious state, and it's all neurons and the energy, like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, you think about a frequency and vibrations. Yeah. So also the hormones create a transmission from neurons to neurons, so it's the energy level of the body, and negative emotions give us a lower frequency, and good emotions like happiness lift us up, like we say, so it's give us energy. So basically, if we stop feeling good and stop doing the behavior that make us feel good together, we become apart, and maybe we start doing the things that make us feel good with others, with other friends or groups or other partners. And then slowly we become strangers again. And we got it all wrong. We confused. The word love comes from Sanskrit, lubaya, which means, I think I'm saying it right, but to be crazy, to go mad, madness. And so we basically named love only the stage of infatuation, of falling in love, of the butterflies in the belly, where the levels of dopamine and serotonin are very high. So, because if we talk about the whole process, it starts with attraction, which is mainly testosterone and estrogen, even in homosexual relationship. It's testosterone and estrogen that play the polarity game in the universe, probably. So we get attracted to someone, especially for the fertility signs, handsome and beautiful, and she looks good and he looks good. It's basically fertility signs for the brain, genetic fitness. And then you go to the infatuation stage, which involves behavior. You go together and you talk and you laugh and you kiss and you touch and hold hands. Our hands have so much nerve cells. So, and then you fall in love, and then you have high levels of dopamine and dopamine in the world of drugs. Drugs mimic the mechanisms of these hormones. So in the world of drugs, dopamine is cocaine, yeah? So it's like addiction. In the beginning, you get high level of dopamine because it's a new person. Dopamine makes us want something that we don't have, to desire, the lust and the desire and the passion for something that is not mine. So in the beginning, you want to make it yours, and then when it's yours, the dopamine levels goes down.
So does dopamine drive the quest for a soulmate?
Yes, I have to say that a soulmate is a myth. Yeah, there is no one biologically anyway. I believe that you can be attached to anyone if you have enough behavior and enough time and enough touch. You can be attached, and we see it. People get attached to their psychologist, to their therapist. You see it in hospitals sometimes, to nurse, to somebody that gives you support, that gives you food, that gives you that we need attachment. Yeah,
it's a fundamental need to connect with somebody.
Yes, if you will be enough time with the person, you will fall in love with him in the end. I mean, okay, there is to be the attraction. But people say that it wasn't love in first sight. There is no love in first sight, and there is no soulmate.
So what's happening?
This broke like so many hearts here of
There is sexual attraction from first sight. I used to, I was an expert in a show in Israel, I think also here in the UK, Marriage at First Sight, which is crazy, crazy show. So it was very interesting for me to be in this show. But my job was in the first 30 seconds that the brain decides if I'm attracted or not attracted. In this case, it's in the wedding ceremony with all the people, and the two strangers are seeing each other for the first time. So my job biologically was that the 30 seconds that the amygdala, the area of the emotions in the brain, the very important emotional area, to say yes. Because it decides in 30 seconds if it's yes or no, but it's not yes or no, I love him. It's yes or no for the sexual attraction, because in nature, you don't have to love somebody to copulate with it, right? To mate with him, okay, or her. So sexual attraction is the first mechanism that comes around. So it's not love at first sight, it's sexual attraction at first sight. Love takes time. To be bonded to someone, you have to make the oxytocin, and when you just meet somebody, you are not attached to him, of course, you just have sexual attraction to him or her. That's why I say all the time, not to have sex on the first date, or even the second date, because oxytocin won't be in the, not enough attachment. So it will be high testosterone, high dopamine, because it's a new person. So I recommend 5 dates. And then
write it down.
But still touch, not to touch, but not have the orgasm, because we need to give respect to the orgasm.
So Foca, what do you think then about soulmates and
I would say
respecting the orgasm?
We all deeply respect the orgasm. I would say two things to add to this. The game of attraction is not arbitrary. We look for something that somewhere there we know existed within us, and we look for the complementary of that. And I think this is fundamental. And attraction is representing a game of complementarity. We're not all attracted to the same person, luckily. There's a variety which I would say goes from there's a nuance of a more soulful experience, a bit like what Jung said with the anima and the animus, so the inner man and inner woman. So as a man, I would be attracted to a woman that somewhere there completes me, reminds me of a fundamental aspect in me. And then definitely there is the game of attraction, and it's not just a platonic experience of the togetherness. And that I would say that the attraction is like a spark that then fuels the tank full of fuel of the heart, which wishes to merge. So that I would say that's the first thing. And the second thing that you mentioned in the beginning about the game of hormones and emotions, one of the fundamentals of the yoga practice is that yoga practice done with this full awareness enables us to trigger the endocrine system. So for example, some postures that we're doing trigger a certain emotion. So one of the famous one would be the cobra pose, in which you stay like this, you open your chest in a wonderful way, and it triggers a certain nuance of love and affection and so forth as one aspect. And because we are much more complex energetically, it as well trigger it's a rather complex process of enriching ourselves with a universal energy. In this case, the energy of love, because it is more than just an emotion that we feel, is the foundation of creation itself, according to the spiritual tradition. So I would say, adding to this, the game of attraction and how we can control our hormonal level is fundamental in the path of our evolution.
I have to say, I do believe in love at first sight. And I also believe in soulmates. Maybe not that there's only one, but I do believe that there is a soul element, much like Foca was mentioning now. That certain beings remind us of something in our soul, and that there is a more profound connection at times than just sexual attraction, because I believe that we can also distinguish between mere sexual attraction and what feels like a deeper connection, which can happen pretty instantly. Now, to be fair, it also depends on the openness, we can say, of the individual, I would believe. Much like Foca was saying now, you can open your chest, as he very beautifully put it, and then you would attract more love in your being, so you could work on this energetically. Now, a person who in this way, as we would say, open their hearts or attract more of the energy of love into their being, would also have a more open heart, meaning their heart is more easily touched, meaning we fall in love more easily, or we feel the feeling of love more easily. And in those cases, when the heart is very open, I do believe that love at first sight is a possibility. Of course, it's not the same kind of love as the love you would feel after 10, 20 years of a committed relationship. A love can grow in many depths and nuances over time as we also deepen that connection and that experience. And I guess also, though, from the perspective of hormones, that it would be normal for me as a woman to say I believe in both, much more than it would be so for a man. And I think you're also getting into that a little bit, because when we come back to our respect for the orgasm, even the experience of orgasm for a woman is more complex than for a man. We need to feel a wider range of connections and emotions in order to have a profound and fulfilling experience of orgasm. We don't go so much for that pure dopamine rush like the men do. And we need more, it's more complex, the connections and the experience that we need to feel. Now, of course, we could say that's just hormones, or we could say a woman is very receptive to more complex, more subtle interactions, as we would call it. The way that we connect in different ways and different levels of our being, and the affinities that we can feel, sometimes with a stranger, because I believe this doesn't only happen with someone we're sexually attracted to. We can meet someone and it feels like you knew them forever. You know, there is like an immediate connection that is formed there, and it's like you just get them somehow. Which I don't know if can be explained hormonally, somehow that part, because it's like there is something there that's different with that person than with 20 other people that are in the same room and you also never met before. And why? Maybe you're even more attracted to most of them, but that connection is not there, it's not the same.
More mystic.
So there is something else. I mean, I'm also a hopeless romantic, so of course I will say that, but I believe there is something else. And maybe, who knows, that something else is actually what is reflected into us as the hormonal responses as well. But that's me coming from the other angle, I suppose. On that.
I wonder whether there is something hormonal there, because I'm very attracted to men who remind me of my father.
Oh, that's classic.
It's classic. I know. And, oh my goodness, I've made some wrong choices. But can you speak to that?
Yeah, this is the imprinting period. The people that taught us love and that activated the mechanism in our womb, in the case of the mother, but also when we come outside, it's our parents. So the imprinting is so strong that in other animals, when you take a sheep and you let her nurture a goat that was born, how do you call it? Baby goat. She raises him and he can come to sexual maturation, and now you ask if he will run after goats in heat or sheep in heat, so he ran after sheep because his mother is a sheep. So the imprinting in the first, in the case of human, it's like in the first year, basically this period of imprinting is so strong. The wiring of our emotional system is practically consolidated by our parents and the way they treated us and how much love they gave us and how much they cuddled us. Hormonal mechanism is the more hormone, the more receptors. So if I was hugged and touched, and the person that hugged me and touched me imprinted his traits on me. So I will be a grown and I will look for these traits. Physically, maybe I will be attracted to somebody that looks like my father, like I did. And you are my soulmate, and he is my soulmate, and there is maybe love at first sight, but also sexual attraction at first sight.
You ticked all the boxes. That's it.
Like I also did check on all the biological evidence, but still, but maybe it can be also physical appearances, but also in traits, personality traits. So you can find yourself in recurring patterns, going time after time after the same men or women, because the brain doesn't look for something that is good for you, but for familiarity, something that is familiar. Because familiarity is predictable, familiarity is certainty, and the brain doesn't like uncertainty and unpredictable, to non-predict, so we go for familiarity. So that's why many people around the world choose partners that reminds them of their family, maybe brother or sisters, not necessarily aware of that, but there are also a lot of couples that really look like each other, that resemble each other, like brothers or sisters. I have some friends like this that everybody tells them, oh, you look like cousins. The brain looks for familiarity.
You talked there about the hormones don't necessarily do what's in our best interest.
Yes.
So can you explain a bit more about the different hormones and how they work within us, kind of against us in a way? We kind of have to learn to transcend them or control them, or certainly to know them, because otherwise we're left feeling that we're to blame for mistakes in our lives, and we don't quite understand how we get our heart broken over many times, or how we are lonely and other people seem to have, couples and successful relationships. There's a lot of blame goes on.
Yeah, not the hard feelings.
And the hormones are not on our side, it seems.
Yes, so basically from the hormonal perspective, I just want to say that the major enemies of love is stress, the stress hormone. These are the enemies of all the love hormones. It makes us stress when we feel stress, and we humans have an area for stress in our brain, like the prefrontal cortex that make prediction of the future, and he always predicts the worst, because it's also for the best interest.
Cortex.
It's the thoughts, the higher order thoughts, but because this area is simulating the future. So we are the only creature on earth that is not worried only from what is happening for him in this moment, but for the future. And that's where meditation comes, to stop thinking about the future and making ourselves sick by thoughts about something that didn't happen and will not happen maybe, but in patterns. Like 95% of our thoughts every day are the same. And they are mainly focused on negative thoughts for survival, because for most animals, they have no Walt or Netflix or order food. They are constantly in a state of danger and survival. So that's why we have more negative emotions than positive emotions. It also feels us more familiar to feel negative and to be negative and to feel stressed. And stress is the killer of love, and stress is the killer of good sexual life. It kills the sexual drive, because in nature, if a lioness chase you, it's not time for sex now, right? So you need to...
1 second, a quickie.
And also that's why in nature, males don't do tantra, yeah? They need to copulate and go. You have so many things to...
Yeah.
A predator will come, another male will come and kick you out. So be fast, like 2-3 minutes, go. So that's why we have such differences between us. So stress is the killer.
Completely agree with you about stress is the killer, and this is why one of the things that I read in Liat's book about how important it is to help women relax as a man, and how women appreciate humor. And one of the qualities that, I'm not going to tell, I told already too, but how important it is for men to be relaxed and humoristic to help a woman enjoy and kind of even reach to the bedroom. Because sometimes she wants very much to make love, but she's still so stressed. And then if he is very relaxed, cracks 2-3 jokes, suddenly it's the foreplay to the foreplay. And I completely agree with you that to a certain level of existence, biology controls us. And what we are aiming to teach as a system of spirituality, yoga and tantra, is how to transcend biology. You said about the 2-3 minutes. In tantra we speak about the 2-3 hours, which are many minutes, in which the man definitely learns how to overcome the biological urge. And it's not just in that respect, I mean, in all respects we can, by knowing the biology, that's what I like very much in the book, by knowing the biology we can see what we ought to transcend, what we are encountering with. Because as Liat put it, when a man is close to ejaculation or in the lovemaking, his frontal cortex goes numb. He cannot think about anything, which is true. But as a man who learned to become more conscious, you learn in that moment to awaken it to a certain extent. We call it the third eye, the control center of our being, and we're not losing control. And in that way, you can prolong the orgasmic experience indefinite, and the erotic act indefinite, until you're hungry or you need to go to sleep or whatever is needed. But this is exactly the point when you see biology and you understand the needs of it. You say, but I'm not now making love in order to make a copy of myself, which is, we're a species that makes it very often. So why should I rush to 2-3 minutes? She's unhappy if I finish after 2-3 minutes. So let me learn how to offer her as much pleasure as possible. And for this, I need to understand my biology and use the tantric and yogic system to transcend it. That's my understanding of the book.
So, Liat, what's going on in the body of a man when he's making love for 3 hours as opposed to making love for 3 minutes? I've been dying to ask that question.
There's no negative. So first, when a man gets aroused, exactly the prefrontal cortex, you see it in the fMRI. It goes up and it goes down. So in women, it's only in the orgasm that this area shut down. So that's why it explains why women get them more time to get to orgasm, because you need to disconnect this area in order to enjoy. And this, I agree with what you said. It's not the responsibility of the man, but if men can be more understand that also the cortisol level of women are higher. We are an anxious creature. We afraid of something that didn't happen.
Yep.
I'm a real example, a living example of to be afraid of something that didn't happen yet. And so we need also to learn to relax and to relax this area, and also to understand, and also the cycle, the hormones during the cycle is also elevating stress, especially in some periods. So that's why we are most want sex in the ovulation period, where estrogen is high and serotonin high, and we feel, it's not that we are not stressed, but we feel it less. So basically, when a man learns to control this area and to control the prefrontal cortex, it can prolong. You can learn how you do it every day in the tantra, but it needs practice. You need to practice it in order to bring this area back to life, and then you can have more oxytocin and not just the play of testosterone, which gives us the sexual drive, and dopamine to give us the pleasure. That's why I'm so much against porn, because it's hijacking the mechanism of, especially the male brain. 85% of this industry is for men, by men. So it's hijacking the amygdala area of the male brain that is also connected with violence. So the sex is very violent, can be. And you can see how it goes to extreme, because you want to give the brain the highest amount for the industry perspective, of course, to make money. Highest amounts of testosterone and dopamine. Oxytocin is not in the story. There is no connection, there is no bonding. It's just like cocaine, to take a boost of a drug and you become addicted. So this is the other part, the other extreme of not controlling your brain, totally not controlling until you get addicted, because hijacking the dopaminergic system will lead you to addiction. If it's food, if it's sex, if it's porn, if it's technology, to be addicted to technology, everything that gives high stimuli of
Or to
dopamine.
violence, as you've said.
Or violence also. But when you learn to control your brain, and when you learn to produce the hormones, like when I don't like the word even foreplay, because this is the play. Because when we say sex for all of us is the penetration side, but that we know that most people will not come for orgasm. So all our what we think about sex is not is wrong from the perspective of the brain, because we give emphasis only to the part that the genes goes to the other generation, the penetration. Without penetration, there is no sex. So the foreplay is the introduction for the main course, and it should be the main course is oxytocin, and oxytocin is the important part of the lovemaking. Otherwise, after the butterflies will go down after 4 years, 5 years, even between 6 hours and 2 years, basically, the falling in love stage of the brain, sex will become a task. Because, organs need to meet, and women will say, I didn't let him come for 3 days or 1 week, or I don't know. Most people, when you ask them how much sex people do in good relationship, good, committed, fulfilling relationship, what do you think?
Very sad story.
Normal.
Once, twice a month.
Okay, you're close, because most people think that others make it 2 to 3 times a week. And the real answer is, in average, of course, is 3 times a month, not 3 times a week. But because we call sex only for the meeting of organs and not for the whole part of being together and being touched and cuddling and only just having this oxytocin. This is not sex. Sex is only penetration. So we got it all wrong, and sometimes in couples after 10 or 20 years, it's become for many women a task. Like he said, people told me, not only for me, I'm not a therapist, that I'm just a biologist, but that he said that he doesn't go to sleep without it. Oh, really? This is what it became, a method to fall asleep. I understand the male perspective. It really, serotonin is secreted, from serotonin, melatonin is made. It's the same, basically, component, and melatonin is the sleeping hormone. So there is, of course, biological logic for the men to feel more relaxed and less stress. For men to not have sex for a long period of time, it really makes to elevate the stress level. But it becomes like the task of women, or maybe the task of men, to fulfill the needs, and you forget to fulfill your own needs, and then your partner become like your child. Okay, so I need to take care of this child, and this child, and this child will need to sleep only with this. So
The unique sleeping pill. Luckily they don't take too long, so it's quick.
Yeah. So I found some method how to make it quicker, so I get my own rest and my own sleep after all the children go to bed, and there is no. Soon they will become strangers to each other because they're not fulfilling their needs, the basic needs.
Can you explain the Coolidge effect?
The Coolidge effect, yeah, the cheating effect. The Coolidge effect is a state of sexual saturation and a state of tolerance after you get the same stimuli from the same person. So basically, it's decreased levels of dopamine when you get the same stimuli again and again. We have the Coolidge effect also in other areas of life, like to work in the same work and do a very routine job, or to eat pizza for a whole week. Even if you love pizza, after 1 week you cannot stand it. Tolerance. It's basically tolerance to the stimuli. And it happens also, it's a mammalian circuit. It's not only, because it was first found in the 50s in Berkeley, in mice. When you present a mice with a female in heat, when you're presenting the same female every 4 days, she ovulates every 4 days, it first takes him 2 minutes to ejaculation, and then 4 minutes, and then 5 minutes, and then on the 4th time, 15 minutes it takes him to finish. And in the 8th time, he didn't even go close to her. And if you present the same mouse after 1 week, every 4 days, a new female, like sexy female, every 4 days, he will stay in 2 to 3 minutes to ejaculation, and he will continue until exhaustion and death, as long as he is presented with new female. So this is the Coolidge effect. It's really, and it's biologically wired because the male is rewarded. Dopamine is the rewarding hormone. He is rewarded. More dopamine is secreted for new and not for the familiar, the same female. They are not attached. They are not getting attached because she's already pregnant on the first the first copulation. So why to give so much sperm for the same female? The reward is for sperm distribution, because you live. If you are a mouse, you live 2 years. 1 year you can do so 2 minutes and take them all. So he's more rewarded for a new and not for the same. And the researchers wanted to understand how the Coolidge effect works. So what is the stimuli? So they smeared the vagina secretion of the new females on the same one female. Don't do this at home. It's not one of the solutions. And he recognized her as a new. So it transmitted by the pheromones, by the smell of the. For us, it's more visual. So this Coolidge effect, sexual saturation effect, is responsible for the most prevalent and non-spoken phenomena in human, which is cheating, infidelity. So in a lot of married couples or long-term relationship, we see, of course, this phenomena. 50%. So some researchers. So in surveys, so the attraction to the same person decreases, and the attraction to a new person will increase. Women usually, there is no difference between men and women in these cheating experiments.
I mean, who will they cheat? I mean, they cheat with someone.
Foca.
First Maria.
So somehow when you hear this, it's like you feel pretty doomed, no? But actually, I found it very, let's say, optimistic in a way, this book, because when you become aware of how we are wired, that this is actually the reality if we don't bring awareness, also we can find a solution. And there I think the aim with the book is very similar to how we are approaching solving problems and growing actually in a tantric practice, which is about bringing awareness. So bringing awareness to different phenomena, and by awareness to find solutions or to find other perspectives maybe. And somehow everything that's described here is very true when you're talking about instinctual sexual relations. I mean, that's just how it goes, and there's nothing we can do about it, and I'm sure everybody in the room had the experience of exactly what has been described. Because we work like that if it's the sexual approach that we're having. Which is also why one of our big emphases that we're teaching is the shift from that sexual instinctual drive to the experience of eros, where our erotic interactions and our intimacy becomes something that transcends the instinctual drive. That's where men can start to have orgasms without ejaculation, can have multiple orgasms, can last for hours. Women are more open to experience orgasms and so on, where a lot of these problems start to be transcended, or at least the dynamics start to look very different. Because of course there is one function when we are having a sexual interaction that lasts for a couple of minutes, with a loss of energy for the man, which will deplete also often his emotional responses and so on, at least for a while. And the dynamics where the intensity, we can say, is even higher after a few hours of interaction, and we have oxytocin showers there, and we feel so happy and blissed out. And with awareness, we penetrate much deeper into that experience. Because indeed, if we're just talking about friction of organs, you become tired of the same friction. You would like some different kind of friction from different people, and that becomes exciting because it's the same. It's the same friction, it's the same body, you've been there, really there's nothing interesting left after a while. And if we're just relying on that hormonal drive, it will run out, and then it's done, and it becomes a duty asset, which is something so incredibly sad. Because it's so important for our health, our well-being, on a physical level, to be harmonious, to have a good immune system, all of that, but also emotionally, mentally, the way that we connect to each other for the relationship. But there is a solution for that, and that's essentially what we're teaching as well, to make love in a different way, in a way where we don't run out, and actually we don't get bored, because that experience suddenly becomes so much more rich and so many more nuances, and you discover each other in a different way every single time. Not because you're introducing new toys and doing all sorts of things, necessarily, but because you're open to a completely different dimension of that experience, and to discover each other, even with spiritual experiences in that interaction. And suddenly when you start to have altered states of consciousness, speaking of taking drugs and the comparison to hormones, when you start to have altered states of consciousness in intimacy, that's a complete game changer. Because now you're not going just to have a friction of organs with the same person a couple of times a month. You're having a celestial meeting with all sorts of nuances that can never be the same from one experience to another. And therefore, it's a completely different, we talk about something different, and I would actually be very interested in the study of hormones, of people who live like that. That might be an interesting sequel at some point, to see what actually happens hormonally speaking, when we start to engage differently and when we have different behaviors.
And to complete this, the dimension of biology works for everyone. But what Maria just described is the opening of a door of multiple dimension, which is an interaction between the two. And I feel very much that by understanding the biology and understanding the methodology of transcending it, then we start to have a complete picture. And speaking about the monogamy or polyamory or however you want to put it, the actual main question is love. And how you multiply love in your life, both for the hormonal, but maybe for the spiritual, which will then manifest in the hormonal. It will be an expression, it will manifest and express itself hormonally. And I think that is exactly the art which the yogis and the tantrics were teaching, were offering us. Even if they didn't know the whole biology of it, they said a similar thing to what you write in the book. We can find similar notions in ancient texts. They said, for example, I think it was in the Yoga Tantra, they said, one should not have a ritual with his wife, but only with a prostitute. And you read it and you go like, oh. And it actually meant that one should engage in that form of ecstatic lovemaking with a woman that he feels new and attracted and alive with. She can be his wife, but he has to have this liveliness in him. And I think that's a great shift. So we completely understand, when we understand the biology, we can then transcend. You can see the multi-dimension of it.
I want to also just give one more example that has been very important for me, because I actually, the first time I studied hormones like this was in connection to my cycle. And as you also mentioned a few times, we as women, of course, we are very familiar with the consequences, if not the causes of that unfolding. And somehow you're just riding a roller coaster is the experience. And in a way, there isn't much you can do about it. But when I actually realized that when I feel suddenly that my life is completely hopeless, and nothing really changed from the day before, and I know that there is something there in a hormonal change and so on, at least I can believe it a little less. So even just this awareness of what actually happens, and I believe it's the same also in the dynamics in a relationship, once you just start to realize that happens, at least you have a moment of reflection. Okay, maybe this isn't real. Maybe it's not because I don't love them anymore or I lost all attraction. Maybe something else is at play, and maybe we can do something about it somehow.
Exactly so, because when the courage effects arise, and sooner or later it will arrive, you don't think about your biology, you don't think about other things, you just think that maybe this man is not for me anymore. Maybe we are not, if I'm not attracted, attraction is love, so if I'm not attracted, so maybe I don't love, or maybe it's lost. Love is lost. So what we are doing with each other, and then starts the resentment and more arguing and more stress and more anger because we are not fulfilling the needs for connection and support. And so you start to feel shame also and guilt. Why I'm not attracted? This is my husband. He's so good to me. And women sometimes said he was too good for me and I wasn't attracted to him, which is exactly the evolutionary brain. Because once we said about the soulmate and everything, but if we look in the Tinder research, the last Tinder research, approximately 10% of men in Tinder gets 90% of messages of the women. So, and probably the 10% are not the good ones. So there is something with us.
The bad boys.
The bad boys. The attractions to the narcissist, to the bad guys, to the one that will be emotionally disconnected and not committed and too self-confident and not the guy that will bring the moon for you. Yeah, we do everything that you said because he loves you so much. So we have this primitive brain that also make us be more sexually attracted to the alpha male, to the alpha female. Usually they're also good looking. They show fertility signs, social status, higher social status. So that's why one of my solutions is also to play games in relationship. Because if you become your wife or husband pleaser, you do everything that they do, or you become very submissive, so the attraction declines. We need to understand it. So not to be rude to each other or bad to each other, but still to maintain this power relations that nothing is, how do you say?
Taken for granted.
Taken for granted, exactly. Nothing is taken for granted. I'm here now, I'm good to you now, but if you're not good to me, I can go. I mean, always to have this tension, even jealousy, a bit of jealousy is good for sexual drive. Because when we fantasize, usually, when you ask people what you are fantasize when you are with your partner, so some will say, I fantasize about him with other women or with other men, depends, or with other people, basically. So we are more attracted to people that other people want them, yeah, for they are sexually attractive.
So they become a high value, and this is our gene saying we need someone of high value so I can be impregnated, the survival mechanism. Yeah.
Also in the Kama Sutra they mention a man should never perceive as if he conquered the woman he loves. A man should never perceive as if he conquered the woman he loves. You never conquered her. You see in men, they start and they are all super romantic. They go like this. The moment he conquered her, that's it, basta. And if a man realizes he never conquered her, he will stay alive, she will stay alive, and the relationship won't have this effect. And there's a false thing that you say, that's it, we conquered, we are out of the game, we can relax. You relax, you die. Don't relax. Keep yourself alive. Keep the dynamism.
That's why you need male friends and female friends to keep the energy, not to cheat, but to have the energy of another person. So you not only have the energy from your partner, but you are a person in your own.
The individual, yeah.
As an individual, and you have friends and you have other things, not only the partner.
So in terms of monogamy and polygamy, what's your hormonal reading on that?
You have to say yes.
Yes. So, biologically speaking, if you see all the criteria, you can put us in the monogamous. It won't work. Female and male don't look the same. Males still compete in humans and make wars. We see it all the time. 90% of women reaches 10% of men. It's alpha male. So this is the whole system of polygamy. If males compete and the winner takes it all. The female wants him. He doesn't conquer them. They want him. They want the alpha, the richest, the highest, the tallest, the highest. Still in human, women are attracted to tall guys. It's amazing. You see it everywhere. How tall. And it's basically testosterone. And in polygamous species, the male is bigger than the female, in approximately 15% in apes like us. And again, like 7 to 10 centimeters. She looks in the scale that he will be higher for her. That's why men cheat on their heights and women on their weight more. Because this is the fertility science for us.
Online,
Yes. Everybody cheat on his age, on their age. But men more for the height and social status, to be more than you are, really. But basically, that's why I really hate the dating apps. It ruins also hijacking the brain and taking advantage of our weaknesses and presenting us as a commodity. Yeah, he has this, check, and also many problems with the dating apps. I write about it in the book, how it's so hard to find love in the digital area, because someone is, or maybe we do it to ourselves, we abuse our brain. We really abuse our brain by these dating apps. But anyway, still, we are different. Male and females, we are.
So we're not monogamous.
So we're not monogamous, so we basically belong to the polygamists. Also, our testicles are big, the male testicles.
Mine. Not the others in the panel.
We have balls.
I know you have balls, but it's physical. No?
The human testicles, the male human testicles, is the biggest in relation to body size. This is only in a sperm competition in the species that have some monogamous have small balls. This is biology. So these are the criteria, these are the characteristics that you look if you want to. And also we have the Coolidge effect, and we have cheating, and we have. So basically we can ask, so why we are monogamist? Who invented it? So
social conditioning.
Social conditioning by the Romans, basically. The Romans, because there are still 40%, 45% of societies don't make men marry one women. They allow polygamy. Arab and Africa, there is polygamy, and also our history is polygamy. One man with few females, and the king could have 1,000 women. Your social status will be reflected by how many women you will have. So biologically we are not polygamist, monogamist, but socially, and probably it's good for us because it survived. So my take on it is monogamy is good for people because we need the attachment. We need to be attached. And we can be attached only in committed relationship. When the relationship is not committed, we shut down the oxytocin. We said, maybe he will leave me tomorrow. So he will say, I fall in love with another. So I will not be 100%. Yes, I won't put 100% of my heart with this guy or with this girl. And we need attachment. We know that people who live good relationship, who are in good relationship, are healthier and happier, and have this ability to make a strong emotional bond, to get support, to get stability. It's very important for us. We have this tension between the novelty seeking to meet somebody else and to do something that we didn't do, and the need for stability and security and attachment and predictability. You know that he will be there, you know that maybe he will snore, or maybe he will, the touch will be the same, but he is there for you, and he's predictable. And when you go out to the world, nothing is predictable. You don't know what you will meet, you don't know what you will do. So we need this both, we have this tension between this both. That's why monogamy is hard for us, but still if we learn to do it well, it's good for us.
That's why you're describing a need to really know ourselves so that we can then make a choice, make a decision as to what's good for our happiness.
Yes. Yes, we are liberated from biology by this one. We are the only creature that can decide. I can decide if I want to be monogamous or don't want to be monogamous. So it's beautiful that we can decide. And also, if you look at the genetic research, you see that 20% of the population have a special variant of the dopamine receptors, which need more dopamine, so they need more excitements in life. So maybe the research showed that they find it harder to be in a committed relationship. So it's our biology. It's also rooted in our biology. It's the risk takers. Sometimes they will do risky jobs. They will work in risky jobs, or they will not work in a boring job because they can't. They feel, and also they feel bored very easily with one person. So maybe before they were thinking, so I didn't meet the right girl or the right guy. But maybe it's something in my genes that I'm getting bored easily and I need more excitement in life. So I think today we are liberated and we transcended biology, and I can say, okay, so now I know what I need, and maybe monogamy is not for me. Okay, so anyone can choose whatever he wants and she wants.
You're the expert on that.
What?
You do all these lectures on
the tantric perspective on monogamy, polygamy, open
But
relationships.
for sure, the awareness of your needs, and but also to keep in mind the need for depth and for connection, and for growing in a relationship and togetherness should be acknowledged. Because of course, you can say that if we are just polygamist kind of preachers, then we should drop relationships in that sense and just be happy with each other. But somehow that approach is not fulfilling for us as human beings, because we have deeper needs for connection. And being aware of, we can say, both needs in a way, of course, makes the perspective a little bit different. How do we create relationships where we can integrate both needs, both the need to maybe have more experiences and the need to have profound connections? And I don't think there is one answer that fits everybody in this. As we can see, even biologically, we might have some differences between us where we are more, what is more compatible with us and what life brings us as well. And I definitely believe an openness always to a relationship that I believe also will be unique, because of course there is me and my needs, but then there is also the one I love and their needs and how they are. And how do we together build a relationship that's right for both of us, having maybe an open understanding instead of, I feel often there is maybe a bit of a taboo, even if indeed we are free to choose. I feel still if someone would come and say, listen, I really feel I need more experiences, that would be judged very harshly by the other one, and often met with maybe some reactions of saying, like, born out of insecurity, of saying, okay, but then I'm not enough for you, or you don't love me, and having reactions like that, which of course shuts down such a conversation. I believe the happiest relationships are born between two people who can meet and be honest without judgment about where they're at and what is in their heart. And not to have a one-size-fits-all when it comes to relationships, but to find out what is your best way of being very happy and growing in that relationship. Does it involve bringing other partners in or not? And how can that maybe also potentially develop or be different in different periods and over time? But that the commitment is still key and very essential, that we're able to commit to a love and we're able to commit to a relationship actually to the degree that we can be open even for maybe unorthodox solutions within that space of love that we are creating together. I believe that's the best way of using our freedom, and actually also the best way of growing, very much in line with the tantric approach to our love life and our life experience.
And that would take a lot of self-knowledge and maturity.
Yeah, also I would, because taking from what is mentioned here by both ladies next to me, there is the need of certitude and the need of adventure, which I truly believe seemingly they are contradicting, but they can be complementary. There is a certitude of one's own self, the certitude that exists when one is deeply self-aware and knows one's own value, is connected to a higher reality. This is where the certitude comes from. And out of that certitude, one can explore the sublime adventure of existence. And then you know that the partner is never certain. This is why it's part of the adventure. But you know that within you have something that you can always rely on. There is a continuity of an existential sense of being that is always there. And that gives the certitude. So the certitude isn't dependent on, the other one is there and you can recognize the snore from miles away. Oh, he's home. Kind of that feeling. That's a certitude which is outwardly projected. But the certitude lies within. And then we open ourselves for the sublime adventure of life, which can have more relationships. But not necessarily. As long as we are open for that adventure, then we are in the school of life. Because if you jump on that uncertitude train, you will grow, you will have many lessons, you will meet many different people. You suddenly come to London to speak in a place you never thought about, with two people who speak about others, suddenly it happens. So all these experiences of life come when we engage with this the openness to the adventure of existence, which lies in certitude, or is polarized, met with the certitude of one's own self.
And that's very much a tantric principle.
Yeah.
And also when we lock ourselves within a frame, we stop evolving. And I also believe that's why a lot of these problems that Liat also very correctly mentioned appear in relationships, and kind of a very predictable pattern in most standard relationships, also because we really try a one-size-fits-all pattern that we put there and with certain expectations about how it ought to be. And then somehow we always fall short of how it ought to be. Because that ought to be is not a very alive concept that actually fits real people in a process of growth, that each of them are very unique and each relationship is very unique. And this, the tantric path is approaching life as a path of evolution and transformation, of growth. And if we are simply just saying, okay, this is how things are and should be, and we try to fit in that box our entire life with very limited success very often, because somehow it doesn't fit, it doesn't add up, we also block ourselves from discovering all the many ways we could in fact have grown and discovered a life that was a sublime adventure, as Foca put it.
But it should be handled with care.
Completely.
Because if the relationship is
Many
not
hearts
strong,
involved.
yeah, if the relationship is not strong enough, it will break. That's what statistics shows. That, if you open the relationship when the relationship wasn't well from the beginning, it may not survive. The jealousy, the negative feelings that we start to feel about the other person, and many couples make rules. You shouldn't sleep with the other person, or we make it in this context or that context, and the brain doesn't have rules, and sometimes you get this dopamine surge and you come home and say, I fell in love and I want to live with the other person now, and you cannot predict it, so it should be handled with care, and I would say go to this option if you want to maintain the relationship. Of course, there is no one size fits all, but go to this solution only when the relationship is really stable and strong and everyone is confident with himself, because it gives a lot of anxiety and insecurities when you see your partner with another. It takes the brains to whole other levels. And also, if we did everything inside the relationship, like exploring tantra, other sex, other forms of relationships, do we have enough serotonin and dopamine? Because the quest is for dopamine. It doesn't necessarily I need to get this dopamine from another guy that I meet. It also will be frictions of organs that will end after 2 minutes because it's new. But if it will be routine, it will also have the Coolidge effect. So maybe the dopamine can come from other areas of life. I can look at my wellness wheel and see maybe my career. I'm not happy with my career and I'm starting to search for dopamine in other places. Maybe if we'll have a threesome, everything will be changed. But maybe it's my work that I'm not fulfilled, or I don't feel purpose in my life, or I don't have enough friends, or I don't do enough things. like going to trips, going for a trek in Nepal, doing adventurous things.
You got 2 kids from that trip, no? That was an adventure.
What about conforming? But what are the hormones that make us conform and impose that on other people, on our children or other members of society, this desire to conform?
So it's basically also the oxytocin that make us wants to satisfy the society, to be part of society, to belong to society. We cannot survive by ourselves. We are a very weak creature. We don't have good muscles and feet to run. We cannot do many things. We have only each other. So we survive only as a group. So that's why we have such strong mechanisms to make us conform, to make us part of the group. We see it in adolescence, when you don't want to be different than your friends. You want to look like them, to dress like them, to do what they do, in order to be part of the herd.
But also a need to make a contribution, which can actually be an
Very
elevating desire.
Yeah, very uplifting.
And evolutionary.
Yes, and evolutionary, I mean, other, even monogamists or serial monogamists, we cheat all the time. You know, the swans with the, you know, they do this heart. 40% of the eggs is not of the male that 40%, this is the most monogamous creature. Okay, so we have a lot of cheating, but it's very interesting. Even in animals, I saw once a movie of a penguin female cheating on her husband. While he went to bring food, she brought someone else into the cage, into the cave, and he saw it. And there was a bigger, fight between the males, and she looks from the side. And it's amazing. She hides it from him. In every monogamous creature, they hide the cheating. They don't do it in front of the other, because this is the biological mechanism to protect the offsprings that you have with the same person, and from time to time to exchange genes with others. So not all the eggs will be in one basket from one male. You have from different males and females. So every monogamous creatures feel the urge to hide it from the father of his offspring or the mother of their offspring. So it's very interesting for me that it's like it's like an adaptation.
Reminds me of something that you said as well, that men, the need to control women by men. Where's that coming from?
Yeah, testosterone. But basically, only one of the two sexes can be certain, 100% that the genes in the offspring is theirs. It's only the female. The male can never know. We saw with the swan, it's 40%. In pigeons, it's 30%. In human, what do you think in human? How many men raises children that is not theirs?
I read your book. 1 of every 7.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It was done, I think, here. Okay. It's a lot. And that's why it usually...
7?
Yeah,
15%.
15%. Yeah.
The postman is very busy.
Usually it's the firstborn child or the lastborn child, so all the time keep an eye.
If you're in the middle, you're safe. If not,
so it's a common feature of females around the mammalian, and not only the mammalian kingdom. In the mammalian kingdom we have polygamy, but in monogamous creatures. So we don't see this loyalty, of course, to each other.
But over the years, has it become a habit pattern for men to want to control women, which has nothing to do with
So the males has a problem, because they want to be certain that they are the father of their offsprings. So they have two options in order to be sure that something from that their genes are in the next generation. One is to distribute sperm. As many women as possible. If there is one young lady, fertile lady around, just try. There is also experiment in humans that they took a beautiful women asking men on the street, would you like to have sex with me? 95% said yes.
Surprise!
Married, non-married, it doesn't matter. If there is a opportunity, why not? The second mechanism, the second strategy is to control her. To don't let her go to anyone else, because we talk about the Coolidge effect. I explained it in the mouse, in the male, but it's also in the female. When you present her one male and you expect that she will be attached to him, she will be attached to him, but from time to time she will check what's happening in another cage if there is something better there. So we have this effect.
Not necessarily better, new.
New. So it's not that the females are fully attached. So the male develop these strategies, distribute sperm, and also control the female with rules, with everything that the human mind, not only violence, because in nature there is violence, he controls her by violence. In us also we have violence, but also we have rules and taboos, and women all through centuries paid more for infidelity than men. So we have these all taboos and rules that control women and control women's sexuality. There is a reason why we don't know anything about our orgasm and how to please ourselves, how to touch ourselves, how to be connected to our needs. Because for centuries, it's the needs of the man. This controls the patriarchal society.
We teach in depth about how to...
That's what I said in the book, Tantra understand the female brain.
Amen.
Well, thank you so much. Now it's time for some questions from the floor. And we've got a roving mic.
Which will not actually amplify here in the room, it's just for the recording. No?
Yes.
We will hear you anyhow.
Yes.
1 second.
Yes, but I believe in true love. I just want to
Me
say,
too.
I believe in true love.
Yeah, I think we're on the same boat over that.
We can do it. Sometimes I feel that whatever I said, it says the opposite.
But it is also true that love conquers all, though, isn't it? Even hormones, if we are attentive.
My name is Lee. My question is about, you say that 90% of women will choose 10% of men. And because of strength and ability to protect women. But if a woman who has finished all her cycles, would she still choose the same fertile man, or would she be attracted to something different?
This is very interesting. What happened after the menstrual cycle, after menopause. But basically what is seen in dating apps is that still the alpha male wins.
Happens, no?
Also, the social status, unless I think, I don't know from experiments, but unless I think if the women had some experience in her life, and she were with some alpha males or others, and she knows what's really important now, a good person, and not only the social status and not only the physical appearances. I wish to think, but in practice we see also, maybe it's because as we get old, we want to maybe still not lose our fertility, and still older men and women are very attractive to youngsters, to younger people. Like if I'm 50, 60, I don't want someone who is 80 or 70. I want someone maybe like my age or even less. We want to be with younger, fertile, even if they are not fertile anymore, but for our brain, a young age is fertility. So younger than me, basically, or my age, but not older. In men is very profound. that the older the man gets, the younger women they want, they look for. And the dating apps also, they provide these opportunities for older men and younger women. We see it all the time, and biology explained it, because basically we know that relationships that are more than 10 years, there are exceptions, but when it's like a generation gap, it's harder to survive. Then 6 years basically is what most people find. It's predicting the more successful. Of course, there are extremes and there are exceptions to this rule, but 6 years. So still, we look for fertility signs.
I have an add-on question, if I may, because I actually was quite struck by that in your book, where you speak about women who are on the contraceptive pill, and how that influences the way that they relate, first of all, to their interest in sexual relations or intimacy, but also how they choose a partner, actually, because there was something, I don't remember exactly, something with a smell test or something.
Yes.
That showed there was a difference, actually.
Yes, there was a difference that we don't know why for certain women there is a change and for other women there is no change, so there need to be a lot of research if we want to get to a conclusion. But still, it affects the progesterone and the estrogen that's in the pills, affects our sensitivity to pheromones. So basically, the attraction to the guy, and so we are less attracted and less horny if you feel the desire.
So that would affect how we choose a partner as well if we are on the contraceptive pill?
Yes, they show that because of pheromones, it's part of how we choose a partner, the smell and the kiss. We 50 million bacteria goes from mouth to mouth, so we get
so
a lot.
Romantic now.
Yeah.
50 million, give me more of that.
A lot of information to the brain. But yes, but I think maybe because of the dating apps, you see, it's like a commodity. So you want the best, even if it really ruined the original natural way that we meet each other. So if the same older women, adult women, will meet a guy in a dancing, in a party or in a gathering, and he would look very warm and nice and vital. We like vitality, empathy, people that smile, people that laugh, people that talk. And you don't see that in dating apps. What you see is height and the fertility signs, how he looks, how old did he look, or how young he looked. So there is a difference between research on dating apps and research on real life. When people meet in real life, something else happens. Yes.
I realised something very interesting when you were talking about the what was it? Attachment theory. You called it. When you
imprinting.
Imprinting.
Yeah.
That makes us attracted to people who resemble usually the parent of the opposite sex, if the person's heterosexual. But we have this opposite thing, which you just mentioned, which is the MHC, the major histocompatibility complex. Yeah.
Yes.
So with the smelly T-shirt thing, so that women, if they didn't know who it was, they could smell the T-shirt, which was sweaty, and they would be attracted to the ones who were genetically as different as possible, unless they were on the pill, in which case they go for their brothers or their fathers, maybe because they'd be protected or something. But it was really interesting as genetically as different as possible, and then I suppose visually and energetically as similar as possible. That's not what I was going to ask. I was going to ask about, there's, I think, there's indeed something female brain. That was the name of the book.
Yeah, of course.
I read recently that there was some controversy about it and stuff. Does the most recent research bear it out, or
about what?
what she was writing in the book? Is there as big a difference between the male and female brains?
Okay, so it's not the brain, it's the hormones, and we understand that the hormones affect our conscious states. So when we talk about 2 to 3 times more cortisol in the female blood, we talk about more maybe anxiety and overthinking, and so it's not the brain itself, It's the hormones that affects the brain. And if we talk about 15 to 100 times more testosterone in men, which is not the same men, that 15 times and that 100 times, of course. So we also talk about different behavior and sometimes different perspective and emotion. We know testosterone makes you more concentrated on a task, and there are a lot of behaviors that are triggered by testosterone. So it's not the brain, it's the hormones as I see it. Because the brain, if I inject myself testosterone for 3 months, you won't recognize me physically, and also maybe I start to believe in myself more.
Join the club.
No, we see men are more confident than women.
Testosterone is involved in the female sex drive as well, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
And women have half the amount of serotonin compared to men.
Yes.
Very quickly, two other things. Wilhelm Reich in the 1940s, he did electrical measurements of people making love, probably with clothes pegs and God knows what. Has that been replicated since? Because I think he said that when they approached orgasm, the voltage increased and stuff like that.
The organic energy.
It's probably very difficult to get funding to research that.
Yeah.
But many volunteers.
I don't know if it's very interesting, but I don't know if it was replicated. But of course, it's a lot of activity in the brain, so basically, activity of the brain is waves of energy.
Right.
Waves of and frequency. We have the frequency of the brain waves.
Yeah, this was actually on the genitals.
Ah, on the genitals.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
We have nerves on the genitals, of course.
Right. One more question. Lisa Feldman Barrett. She's written a book on lots of books on emotions and that kind of thing. If I remember right, I was going to look it up and I forgot. It's something to do with, there's no such thing as emotion, it's all to do with the hormones and then the way you respond to it. Is that kind of general? Do most biologists and neuroscientists agree with that? Or is it like...
That is the common knowledge in biology, that that emotions are the product of the release of hormones. And when that's why when you take a drug, you have such emotions and feelings. And feeling is the sensation of the body. We have receptors for the 9 family of these chemicals in every cell in our body. So we feel in our body the love, the hate, the resentment, the anger. Every cell in our body feels, but emotions we call to what the brain translates the feeling of the body, because the hormone affects the whole body. How do I know if I'm angry? I feel my blood pressure. I feel I'm getting hot, so I know I'm angry. So first the body gets the stimuli from the outside, the hormone is secreted, and it's a cycle. Now that our nervous system is getting all the time stimuli from the environment, and it's aroused accordingly, and the hormone, the endocrine system, is part of the of the nervous system. So the hormones are released, and they are amplifying these feelings. And then I start to feel it. The brain start to feel the emotion of the body, and then this area put it into words, and I can say, I'm very angry now. I can't stand this. But sometimes.
Don't take it personally.
No, of course. But sometimes we don't know exactly to put words into these feelings and emotions. Or sometimes we don't think it's good to say, like, I'm jealous now, or I'm angry at you, or I love you. But we feel it in our body, and we have these emotions, not necessarily we have words for it. But our thoughts are based on our emotions. So if I'm feeling stressed, like I saw in the news, I saw something stressful and I feel stressed, and now I'm starting to make thoughts that are based on my emotion in the same minute that came from the stimulus from outside.
And there's a line of causality.
Oxytocin in men can be different, can be aggressive or aggression.
Vasopressin, this is the derivative in men. It's one amino acid different. The vasopressin and the oxytocin is the same family, but the vasopressin is the male version. Male have oxytocin and vasopressin, But vasopressin affects more the aggression and territoriality, you know, protect.
So it's to protect the woman.
Protect the nest, and less about empathy, more about territorial and protection.
There's a line of causality, which is from the spiritual perspective. There is those emotions that we feel are, or you can say they are, then manifested in the brain and then become a feeling. So, kind of to say that, in a way, it makes it so we have become a bit.
Feedback loop.
But
Yeah,
it goes
exactly.
both ways, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
I've had the experience, for instance, you know, having had in my youth a very intense relationship with the feeling of jealousy, which had become a very bad pattern for me. And I would just, you know, it was an automatic trigger, as you can imagine, after a while, because I was wired like that. And then working on myself, starting yoga and tantra practice, I suddenly in a moment had this, you know, I was about to get triggered because something happened that normally would make me jealous. And then I was like, hey, wait a minute, I don't actually feel like that. So there was no response in my body, and I was just about to jump all over the feeling that wasn't there when I paid attention because I had shifted my perspective. So I believe there must be some, like, it can also go the other way. Sometimes our thoughts are producing those
Exactly, yeah, it's that.
manifestations
It
in
appears
the body.
kind of in the consciousness, and then it will manifest in the biologic, and then will go into the body, and then will feedback loop accordingly. And then, very much what you say is when we awaken the self-awareness, then we master ourselves. Otherwise, as you said, it's just, I mean, they define the wisdom as knowing the cause, and ignorance is suffering consequences. So what we described in the line of this causality, we constantly suffer the consequences. That feeling comes and it goes, and it's a roller coaster. And well, if we become wiser, then we understand the cause, and we can break this loop, and we can even control it, as we do with the yogic exercise. We control the hormonal.
It's even a loop of addiction. Like you become addicted
To a feeling.
To that feeling.
Yeah. So it's even before they secrete it, you just want to get the dose.
And same as an
Of the
addict, you
jealousy.
also become identified with that, because then I am a jealous person, or I am an angry person, and then basically it's you being an addict. I am an addict.
Where does this guilty feeling comes from?
1 second, take a mic, and then we can hear you again.
Where does the guilty feeling comes from? All these ones.
It's also part of our very negative emotions, to feel guilt and shame, but it's also part of us want to belong to each other. So if you hurt somebody and you see the effect of your deeds or your words on another person, it triggers the empathy center. You feel the oxytocin, and automatically you feel you want to make the person feel better. Yeah, why did I do this to this person? So you feel guilty. So it's a very important emotion to make us bond. Yes. So you hurt somebody, and now you feel the guilt. The guilt will make you. Emotion drives the behavior. So the behavior will be to go to that person and say, "Listen, I'm sorry. I shouldn't speak to you like this." And then there will be reconciliation, and you become best friends. There is data to prove this, that people that are apologizing to each other become better. The connection is better afterwards, because I did something wrong, I felt the guilt, and I corrected. Everything you broke, you can fix. So it's very important emotion to feel guilty, but it can also go to the extreme and to be addicted to guilt. Maybe if my mother used to make me all the time feel guilty, since I was born, I felt guilty for everything that happens to her or happens in the house. I will become the person that...
A victim of life.
Hi, I have a question from the scientific point of view. When you think about couples that, I don't know, make love and then they sleep together or sleeping in different parts, what happens with the hormones and everything like that?
Okay, great question. Better to sleep apart. From the biology perspective, there is research done on the
On the second chapter in one's life, when you have a second relationship.
second relationship, yes. After marriage, like second relationship, when everyone have his home, children, and house, the ones that don't go to move together stay longer. And also there is a research on couples that in the first chapter of their life don't sleep in the same room. Also, they report a more satisfying sexual life and bond because it affects the Coolidge effect. I mean, it cancels the Coolidge effect because the Coolidge effect will happen when you get the same stimuli time after time. And even if the mouse in Berkeley, when they take the female and the male apart for 1 week, they recognize each other as new. So you need to be together, but also separated. But you can be separated in different homes, which is also good because you have your own space. And it's very important for us to have our own space. When nobody is there and we don't need to think about anyone else and to think, oh, maybe she's angry, maybe I did something wrong. No, this is my space. I can be connected to me. It has the picture on the wall that I like, the atmosphere that is good for my well-being. It's very important. Everyone needs to have a room to close the door and be just with myself and not with others. And not to take responsibility for other people's needs. No, he has his needs, I have my needs. So basically it's good for good relationships to have separate home. But even if you're in the same home, it's good to have, there will be ups and downs. In any relationship, there will be times that the couple will be more connected and times that they will be less connected. And it's okay, it's like, a sinus. The important thing is to really come together and to give space to each other, to do other things with other people, and also to be together but also separated as individuals.
So you can miss one another.
Yeah, that's.
You never miss one another?
But it is. No, it's true, and I tested that. But today I was listening to a podcast, and one doctor was just like saying that she thinks that it's really important to, cuddle and be there and feel the other person, and it was a little bit contradictory.
Yeah, I heard that one too, I think.
Sometimes, yeah, you do, but not all the time.
Yeah.
But I think it's the closeness and the togetherness, and I guess if you live in an everyday life where touch is not a very big part of it, like where you don't touch your friends, your family very much, you don't hug a lot and so on, the only physical intimacy you really have is from your partner. And then, of course, sleeping together suddenly becomes really important because that's where you get to cuddle and be close to somebody. And you need that need fulfilled because it's a fundamental need of a human being. But I believe it can also be fulfilled simply in being more affectionate with other family members or having maybe an openness to also hug a friend long enough for it to have effect and so on.
Separate homes enable to get the affections, but not the stress. You don't bring the stress home. The stress, especially in chapter 2, that you have also children that biologically are not meant to live with each other. In nature, you kill the other person offsprings.
Don't do it.
And here we are supposed to take care of them as they were ours, and they were supposed to be with each other like brothers and sisters. It won't happen. They fight on resources. As now the resources become more scarce, and you have to divide it between more siblings, and you hate your siblings anyway. And now there are more siblings that are not connected to you. So genetically, you have all the reason to fail. Nobody will like no one, and there will be more stressors in the house. So you cuddle in the evening, but until you get to the bed, you have so many stress. So it's different between couples.
It's not the Brady family.
One big
What do you
happy
think
family.
about just like groups of women being together? Because that's what indigenous people were doing, or hunters. They were going away, the male were going away, and then the females were all together and things like that.
Yeah, and we see it also in nature. In apes groups, the females are together and the males patrolling and taking food and fighting each other, and the females take care of.
We have a rise of testosterone. When men are just around other men, we have a testosterone. It's enough one woman in the room and it goes down. That's why men go to football. They don't really care about the body. They just want to be together.
No,
it helps
we
us.
know here in Tantra, in Tara we have circles of women and circles of men. But I wanted to
Yeah.
have a little
It's
bit
very
of
important for us.
a draft from the scientific point of view.
The happiness research shows that the best thing a man can do for his happiness and his health is to marry a wife, one woman. And 2 women will be too much. The best thing a woman can do to her health and happiness and longevity is to enlarge the circle of her friends, female friends. So also biology confirmed this, that I think it's the oxytocin. Female friends, women friends tend to talk more like a rapport conversation, not rapport conversation, that it's more male, like I did this, or
Bullet point conversation.
and more affectionate and they're more supportive to each other. So we need this group of women. It's very, very important, and I think also what it enables men and women survive, because I think the way that I think we are really different creatures, and I'm amazed when I see a man and women like 50, 60 years married and still love each other. I say, wow, this is a miracle biologically that they will be with each other and love each other. We have biology is against us in this. Many women say he doesn't understand me, he doesn't listen to me, he doesn't see my feelings, because we think because she thinks a man is a woman with a hair, hairy women. Like Alison Armstrong said this. Women think that men are hairy women, and they are not. They really have this testosterone. That makes, if you can see your friend or your child and see in the eyes that she feels something, it will take, he will see it also, but it sometimes takes more time, and it depends on his conscious state and how stressed he feels. Men tend to be more concentrated in themselves and
Until we develop.
More confident with themselves. Also, we see it around. So this is a major complaint of women about men. He loves me. I know that he loves me. And the men will say, I do everything for her. She says something and I will make. So they're more service. So I don't say every day that I love her and how good she look. But I do things for her. Yeah. And it's also a very important differences. There is a survey, a big survey that was done. They asked women 6 to 26, girls and older women, how many think they are beautiful? What do you think, in percents? How many women, girls walk in this world and think that they are beautiful? 10%? Less. 2%. 2%. Gorgeous and think they are not enough. And how many men, 6 to 86, think that they are 40% are sure that they are a gift to humanity. This is a huge difference. So he doesn't think that she looks in the mirror and she said, oh, maybe I'm too this and too this. But she needs to hear it. You are the best, I love you, and this will make the stress go down, because some of the things that affects the prefrontal cortex is self-judgment. And if I think that I'm not sexy and I'm not beautiful, and after all these labors and pregnancy, I'm not what I was when I was 16. There are so many beautiful women in the commercials and in the Instagram, or they show me, in the feed, how to lift the buttocks. You're not pretty enough, you're not good enough. And I need this confidence also from my man, but he doesn't think like this. He doesn't think that you feel that you're not pretty enough.
Until he's educated. This is why it's only the school, because men aren't educated. We aren't male-intended. We're just a little bit simple in the beginning. We just think about it linearly. We also think that women are similar to us. They know that they're beautiful because we see them as so beautiful. And this is why it is so important for men to develop the understanding of how unique different and complementary is a woman. This is how he grows. Because in the solution you said, men's health is to be with a woman, women's health is to be with other women, meaning women is the solution. If I derive from that, which in a way is true. A society in which women flourish is a happy society. And it's our role as men to make women flourish. And you can only do it not if you're her servant, but if you grow to be the love of her life and to fulfill her on all the levels, then society will flourish. And that everybody will be happy.
I agree.
Just a quick question. When you said 2% of women and 40% of men, is that society or is that biology?
This is the great questions, because we cannot isolate the variables, but I say all the time it's both, because when in Caltech Institute, they gave men and women inhale of testosterone in an inhaler. They gave them to do some tasks, and they saw that the confidence level rises 2 times. How much they were confident in the mission, and also their thinking was more impulsive. So yes, the hormones affects our behavior, affects our perception of ourselves, and it really, in all societies, men are more confident in their abilities. Like there are many, but also it's all the time nature and nurture. We have this, and I think we as a society make biology more prevalent. I mean, we increase the biology because we increase the testosterone in men. We tell them all the time how good they are, how even when they are children, there are research done that mothers cuddle the sons more than the daughters, and they talk to the sons differently than the daughters, and even they hug them more than the daughters. So
because we're so cute.
So it's always nature and nurture, but also in the animal kingdom, you see male are like, the peacock. They love themselves. They are in love with themselves.
Is there anywhere in the animal kingdom where men adore women as a natural practice?
In the animal, that males adore females.
Yes.
Usually the males are more decorative. They look nice and they also show off. It's all around the animal kingdom. I know that in hyenas there is alpha females. So the whole system is the opposite, because the female has more testosterone than the male. So it doesn't matter male or female. The matters is the hormones affect. So the female has more testosterone. Even their vagina, the clitoris is bigger. They have problems to get pregnant. It's all enlarged. And it's very interesting because in this matriarchal society, in the hyenas, the children eat first, and then the females, and then the males. And in the patriarchal society, when there is an alpha male, the males eat first by their social status, and then the females, and the children eat whatever leftovers. So it's very interesting because also in matriarchal society, here as the society becomes more feminist, the children's status becoming
Rising.
rising. Yes, that's interesting.
Any more questions?
Maybe it's the last one. Thanks.
You mentioned that the honeymoon period might be as short as 6 hours, which came as a shock. I'm curious, what are ways of extending the honeymoon period, both from the biology
Tantra.
and...
This is a very good question. Because first, I think the acceptance that it's something that you need to work on it, and there will be no butterflies. There may be no butterfly because this is part of biology. When something is becoming familiar, it's becoming a family. Yeah, and family is not exciting. The ones that you know already. The ways to prolong it, the period, is to stay strangers to each other, because there is a power struggle in the beginning of the relationship. And we fell in love with someone because he was, an individual, and he has his own life and his own needs and own motivations in life, and then we want to change him. We want to make him want only me and be only with me and do whatever I say. Men and women, we do it to each other all the time. We try to domesticate each other. And then when we domesticate each other, we lose the attraction. Because it's predictable and it's certain, and I know what he will say, then he will know what I say. So to prolong the honeymoon period is to prolong the individual state, that you will not be domesticated and you will stay a stranger to the other. Stranger, a mysterious, something that I'm not yours and you are not mine. You all the time have to conquer. And it's not, when do we meet, why didn't we meet so much? To be too enthusiastic to be with each other, and always to keep a distance, some distance. You can't desire what you already have. It doesn't work. You cannot secrete dopamine for something that you already have. So to prolong this period is to prolong the time that, even I said not to live together immediately, because in the Western society we first we fall in love and then we live together and then we get married. Like in the Coolidge effect time, we get married. After we already lost the honeymoon period, so maybe there is something good in the traditional that you wait and first get married and then go together to live together, to prolong the separation.
But Tantra actually do offer a lot of very concrete solutions to exactly that problem, and very much along the lines of what Liat has mentioned. Because for instance, this familiarity that appears is actually what kills the spark completely. But often we confuse familiarity with intimacy, and they're actually two different things. Familiarity means that you kind of know each other, and eventually you know each other so well that it produces about the same excitement as your furniture or something, you know. Like really it doesn't provoke any feeling of anything new, and therefore you kind of lose interest and there is no attraction, and you definitely don't feel the butterflies and the thrill anymore, which could last different periods of time, depending on how well you manage and indeed how long, in this case, you prolong your complete merging together and spending every living moment with each other. But it also doesn't mean staying strangers in the sense that you're making a distance between each other, because you can actually be very intimate even with a stranger. Not that that's what happens when we've known each other for a while, obviously. But you probably had moments or experiences where you met somebody and you actually felt a very profound connection because you had a really good conversation or you really connected, even if you didn't know each other almost at all. Still there was a feeling of profound connection. Now, that connection doesn't depend on the information you know about the other one. Like, you know, if after a while of being together, you know all about their family and their habits, and you've seen them go to the toilet, maybe even in some cases, and so on. It's like you know everything about that person. And then we consider now we're very intimate because we know everything about each other. A private detective is not intimate with the person he investigates. I mean, it's not intimacy, it's information, it's something else. Whereas intimacy is the feeling of profound connection, actually the one that produces oxytocin. So it's the connection that we want to focus on, and that connection often is better between two individuals who actually rest in themselves and who are not anxiously attached and focused on each other all the time, which of course is a temptation. When you're in love, it feels so good, you want to spend every living moment feeling that feeling until it's gone, because we devoured it somehow. Rather, you want to notice the behavior that you have when you have that feeling. And I would actually say, be very enthusiastic every time you meet and make it special. Not spending time together all the time so that when you're together you just anyhow hang out and do silly things that are not important. Because everything is nice when you're in love. I mean, you can watch the most boring TV show, it's nice because you're together. You can eat stupid food, it doesn't matter because you're together. It's the togetherness that gives you the feeling. But still to pay attention to what creates that beautiful togetherness. The way that we look at the other one, the attitudes we have, the fact that the other one is a universe that we are about to discover that we knew nothing about before. Stay in the not knowing, stay in the mystery, cultivate the mystery while discovering more and more. Because in the end you will know that being like you knew nobody before. And still you didn't finish. Because you didn't made it familiar somehow. You didn't get used to it. So it's very important that we notice the state of being in love and the attitude we're having without over-consuming it. Rather, actually, to enjoy it, I would say. To enjoy the feeling and to look forward with anticipation, but let it breathe and let it grow. And then learn how to replicate the behaviors you had in the beginning, maintaining that inner attitude, because then you can actually stay in love and stay in that state for years. And even if it dies out, you can bring it back. And we saw it, and I experienced it personally many times, that it is possible to bring it back. Even the butterflies, if you do it well, and if you pay attention, and if you put some things in practice. And Tantra has a lot of ideas of how to do that, very much fitting with a lot of things, actually, that Liat was saying.
I can just add here that the value of continuously growing. Because if you are not the same all the time, you will meet a new person there, very much about the individuality, the intimacy, and to devote oneself to a process of growth and transformation. More than this, realizing the value of the other one in the journey of self-knowledge. Imagine that you as a man, in your heart, there's this like massive doors that have 2 keys on, and only with your partners you can open them, and realizing the value of the depth that only when the 2 of you go there together you can discover one's own self, and you can help her, in this case, discover herself. And by that there is a journey in which we go and discover one another, because it's not just the infatuation with the other one, it's the fact that the other one represents a journey of self-discovery, and one learns how to love themselves truly. Jorge Luis Borges once said in one of his poems, it's not only that I love you, but next to you I love myself for truly who I am. I'm rephrasing a bit, but still poetic. And the value of recognizing that you savor one another, and it makes you happier and happier because you unlocked the potential of love that exists there in your heart.
Beautiful.
So it just remains for me to say an enormous thank you.
Thank you.
Liat, it's been an absolute privilege to have you here.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, and I enjoyed your book so much, and I wish you great success with it.
Thank you.
And hope you'll come back again to see us.
I will.
The second book.
There is a relaxation here.
And Maria and Foca as well, your insights have been very inspiring, and I'm sure we'll be going out of Tara on a bundle of love, equipped with lots of information so we can take charge of our hormones and recognise them when they come up, and have very happy, loving relationships. And here are the books for signing should you wish to purchase a book.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. At Tara, our mission is to make genuine spiritual knowledge available for all those who aspire for spiritual development and transformation. If you enjoyed this discussion, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.